Hey, it's the Kingpin here from the Bacon Cartel, and guess what? Right next to me over there would be Chef Robert Coleman from the Lord's Place. Everyone say hello. Robert, say hello to
Good
everyone.
morning, everybody.
So, Robert and I are going to be discussing some great stuff today. I wanted to go ahead and let you know a little bit about the background about Robert. He is a fantastic guy. We have a really great relationship. There's a story behind that, so we'll get to that in a second. But let's start with what Chef Coleman has actually done. So, Chef has been the director of the food service for the Lord's Place and the Joshua Catering. He has worked in the hospitality industry for over 30 years. His first job was a dishwasher. This is amazing because there's a story behind this later on that we'll talk about at the United States Naval Academy's Officers Club. Yeah.
Correct.
Let's
Yep.
and that is in Indianapolis, correct?
That's in Annapolis, Maryland.
Indianapolis,
Yes.
right? So Robert
Yep.
attended Salisbury State. Seriously,
I know. We hear it all the time. It's now called Salisbury University because they couldn't take it anymore.
I can see why. In Maryland, and as a member of the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity and the second vice president of the Palm Beach Chefs Association chapter of the American Culinary Federation. If you don't know where
Wow.
that goes, that might be where he and I know each other.
Could be.
He moved to South Florida because it was too cold up there in 1994 and was managing partner for South Florida's largest private corporate jet catering company. After the company was sold in 2008, he worked as a consultant to restaurants and caterers until 2011 when he joined the Lord's Place team. Chef Robert can be seen on Now South Florida on WPTV with Shannon Cake, where he's regularly food segment contributor. We also recently ran into one of the mayors for what was the mayor for Lake Worth. She wants to do something too,
Lake
right?
Worth.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. We've done some shows with her as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, Chef, you live with your wife, your two children in North Palm Beach. He's very active, a volunteer executive board member of the Palm Beach Gardens Youth Athletic Association. So
Indeed.
you seem like you have your hands like full.
Well, yeah. Don't we all?
Well, especially now, right?
Yeah, well, even more so today for sure. Well, I mean, I think there's some of us that have our hands full, and some of us that are sitting around trying to figure out what to do next. I'm benefiting from the being part of a social impact agency that our mission doesn't stop just because there's something going on in the community. We have to continue to serve our clients. So dealing with as a homeless services agency, it's something that we continue to do regardless of what they throw at us.
Well, and which is really interesting because you don't call them homeless, you call them clients, which is you're trying to humanize the person again, correct? Is that one of the reasons why?
Absolutely. I think, I think like a lot of people, and I openly admit I'm guilty of this as well. Before I went to work for the Lord's Place, I didn't really see homeless people. You would drive through an intersection and there'd be somebody standing there. Uh-oh, they were there. Okay. I think we glitched for a second, but,
You're there. You're
you know,
there.
you driving down the road, you might see a guy with a cardboard sign, but you didn't really see the person, and, once I came to work for the agency, I came to understand, look, there, but for the grace of God go I, and, there's a lot of folks that are on the street for a lot of different reasons. And, and these are human beings and they need to be treated like human beings. And so, I think that's the culture and the mission of the Lord's Place is to, to take care of people and to help them in any way that we can to improve their circumstance.
Well, and it said that you've been 30 years and you started in the industry. What happened in your brain that wiring that you said, I'm going to go be a dishwasher over at the Officers Club at the Naval Academy?
I always had jobs as a kid. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. I was raised by a single mom. My dad lived in town and I saw him on the weekends, but for the most part, it was, there wasn't a lot of money flowing around. And so, as a young kid, you're hustling, you're trying to find ways to make money. So I had the newspaper routes and, you're taking care of people's backyards and lawns or whatever you can do. And, one of my buddies in the neighborhood had gotten a job over there at the Officers Club at the Naval Academy, which was, 3 or 4 blocks from my house. And he said, hey, they need another dishwasher. You want to come work? Now, I think we've heard this story 1,000 times from executive chefs that all started out at 14 years old as dishwashers. And, I'm wondering where are all those 14-year-old dishwashers today? Because I certainly can't find it, and they won't let us hire them.
Right, exactly.
But so I'm like, well, who are going to be these chefs if they don't start when they're 14? But yeah, so it was a referral from a friend. He said, hey, come work here, and I went and worked at the club, and it was a great opportunity. And then another friend said, hey, come work at Middleton's Tavern, and they're paying more and they got a better deal, and so we went over there, and that's kind of how the career goes, right? You just you get on and you kind of work your way up.
And then, so when you went to Salisbury State, uh,
Nobody can say it with a straight face.
because I was about to say steak.
Yeah, of
Let's
course.
be honest, everybody does. But when you went there, what did you kind of like focus your attention to? Was it more business oriented?
Absolutely. I was going to be a finance guy. I was all about, business and finance, and I got to school, and um, you know, of course I had to get a job because that's what you got to do.
Right.
And I got a job at the Sheraton Hotel right there in Salisbury. And over the 4 or 5 years that I was with Sheraton, I got into the management training program. I had an opportunity to work in just about every aspect of the hotel, and it really grabbed me. I had a phenomenal F&B director, Sandy Fulton, that I worked with, and she's an incredible woman. She really was a great mentor and got me excited about the industry in general. And so I had spent time as a bar manager, restaurant manager, room service. I mean, working all stations, pretty much all over the hotel. And it was a great opportunity to fall in love with the hospitality business.
And that's kind of where you got. That's where you said that. Where you would say the hook landed into the side of the cheek.
Well, I think the first big hook was probably, and this is going to be an awful thing to say, but the first big hook was probably, sneaking beers behind the dumpster at Middleton's was probably the first time, like I think I was 16 at that point, and I think that was probably the first that I was like, hey, this is pretty fun, because
Right.
you're a teenager and you're a moron, so you don't know.
Exactly.
But I think from a career perspective, I think Sandy was one of the people that really kind of drove that for me, was to be excited about the industry.
Did you have any challenges or any opportunities when you went through things? Did you have those bad chef opportunities when you worked?
You know,
Anything stand out?
I feel like I've been pretty blessed with the people that I've been able to work with. There was one chef who I won't name, but he was a corporate executive chef at a property where I worked. And he was one of those come in the kitchen, throw pots and pans, make the banquet chef cry. Those kind of guys. There's not enough stocks cooking it on the stove. What are you guys doing? I can't work like this. Pretty hardcore individual. But that was where he came from. He had that traditional European apprenticeship, and he got it handed to him, and so he was handing it to everybody else because that's how it goes. The hazing kind of follows down. So I have seen that. I've been around it. Thankfully, he wasn't my actual boss, but he was like the boss's boss's boss.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I think for the most part, everybody that I've had an opportunity to work with over my careers has been pretty solid individuals who cared about the people that worked for them and took care of their people.
Well, what's really interesting is the reason why I asked that question, and I ask it to everybody because everybody's got a story and been through something.
Yeah.
But in your case, it's different because you are a mentor. You're not just mentoring cooks. You're mentoring people that have been actually gone through some life crisis. And you probably take what that chef was doing and making sure that you're not doing it to those people. And what I mean by that is part of the Lord's place and the mission that they're doing, it's not just feeding the clients, but there's actually a culinary school, correct? Or school?
Right. It's a job training component. And,
Right.
it's we call it transitional work experience. And, really our goal is to help our clients, give them an opportunity for those that are looking for that opportunity to increase their job skills. We do it through our thrift store program with our retail apprenticeship program. We do it through our culinary program. We have a clerical program. So we're offering those transitional work experiences so that folks, regardless of what their background was, can have an opportunity to kind of get their feet wet into an industry and see if they like it. Our culinary program runs 9 months. And so it's a great opportunity to work in a commercial kitchen, get a feel for, food safety and sanitation, and, how do you work in different areas? We have an area that kind of is like a restaurant. We have an area that's kind of like a catering company, and an area that's kind of like a nursing home food service contract area. So they're able to work in all those kind of places and gain that experience and knowledge and knife skills. And every student's going to be different. We've had students that have graduated the program, gone on to be line cooks, and are working their way up in the industry. We've had students that have graduated and become, long haul truck drivers. So, I think the most important part of the program really is the 9 months of showing up to work on time and having to punch the time clock and being ready to work and having those soft skills of working in a professional environment. That a lot of folks just, we take for granted, I think, because, we all kind of grew up in an environment like that. But there's a lot of people that didn't grow up in that work environment. And so they don't understand all the rules of the workplace. And that's a moving target too, but still.
Well, and that could be very commendable for not only you, but the organization, because they're actually giving us chefs, especially now we can fast forward to COVID-19, where Joseph, Chef Waters actually just put out there, he's looking for, grill chef and a PM sous chef and pantry chef. He can actually, you kind of dip into the pool of the labor pool that you guys over at the Lord's Place and other chefs that could be watching us in this local arena can actually pull from, because they have that knowledge, because you're giving them that knowledge to achieve that goal.
Yeah, that's, like I said, it's a client by client kind of opportunity. And so, everyone's going to be different. I just got done with, I don't know if you know, FAU did a complimentary hospitality and tourism management certificate. Mm-hmm. I finished that up over the weekend. And Dr. Ricci, who runs that, had some really, really good content, speaking with the CEO of Boca Raton Resort and Club and some of the higher up folks over at the Breakers. And what was interesting about that conversation was, at those higher end properties, they're all very excited about the fact that they're going to be able to cherry pick the employment pool, because the employment pool has shrunk. It's been a buyer's market for years. People not showing up for interviews, offering people jobs and they don't show up, all kinds of stuff that's been going on. And COVID-19 has changed that dramatically for them. And so I think a lot of the higher end properties are going to be able to really be a little pickier about who they hire. But the other side of that coin was the conversation of so many people being unemployed in the food service sector that a lot of people will leave that sector forever. And so a lot of the smaller operators are going to struggle to find anybody to come and work in their business. And so I think that's where, we have some opportunities with our clients to help them find employment, and really, the folks that come out of our kitchen, a lot of them I find are very thankful for the job opportunities that they get, because of a background or because of their history or whatever it is. People that have a huge gap in employment, that can be a challenge sometimes for employers. But, when they come out with the right attitude and the right skill set, they're ready to learn and ready to take on the opportunities that are out there.
It's funny, you just said there could be a huge gap in between one job to the next. And that's kind of synonymous for our industry, correct? There's a lot of people that bounce from one end to another. And it might not be that they're having an issue. It might be that the issue is the owner that they went to work for, promised them certain things. But it's funny how we're in the industry, we're so more accepting of that. I think we're also more accepting to people that have had a tarnished past, if you want to say.
Sure. Sure. Well, I'll be straight. Half of the folks that come through my program are reentry clients, and that means that they're coming directly out of incarceration. They're coming right out of jail. And so, we've got a good group of folks that we have coming through that program, as well as people that are coming in, through other programs into our agency. And so we're one of those agencies that we're very about ban the box. If you served your time and you've done, paid your debt to society, let's get you back to work. Because the worst thing you can do with folks that have been incarcerated is to, outcast them And then, what's going to happen? The recidivism rate goes up. I mean, it's a perfect example of why the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office supports our programs, our reentry programs, because, we're helping reduce the population in jails because folks that come through our program don't reoffend, at any kind of rate like the normal population does. And so, we're having that social impact as well, which is a huge change for the community. It saves a ton of money for the community at large, and it helps you get somebody's life back together.
Which is amazing. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I reached out and kind of like tapped you to get on here, because I think the story needs to be told. I mean, there's so much negative, especially now with what's going on with COVID. We only focus about the negative, and that's one of the reasons why.
Don't forget your ACF COVID mask.
Yes, I was actually, Steve McCracken actually called me. I was wondering how is it difficult to breathe in that?
It's a little more challenging than a surgical mask for sure, and especially there's actually an area in the back where you can put a filter in, so you can take a HEPA filter and slide that in through there and really really kind of filter the air a little bit more. It's a little challenging. It's a heavy mask, but certainly if you're doing any kind of sweaty work, you're going to be sweating pretty dramatically, which is why I think surgeons wear a different kind of mask. Because they're working for 14 hours and sweating profusely, and you want a different mask. So,
well, I mean, I think besides the point, when a surgeon's working on the patient, it's alive. When we work on the patient, it's dead.
You got a very good point there. Yeah. So
that's why we don't get paid that much.
I guess that's what it is, right?
But
So I think everybody's got to pick pick a mask that's working for them, and again, the mask isn't really about you. It's about everybody else. Unless you're wearing an N95 or something, it's really just how do we reduce the impact that everybody has, and it's also, I think, a good reminder. That's what I heard somebody say, was that if you're wearing your mask, it's a good reminder to other people, hey, 6 foot distance still. We're still trying to keep this thing at a minimum if we can.
Right, and especially I think this is like, I've been on a lot of calls, and we talked about this in the green room, as Kim Brock says. We've been on several calls with some master chefs from around the country, and we're trying to gauge the phone calls I'm involved in have been more of like, what does it look like on the other side, and what's the food going to look like? And I know I had Trisha Coyne on last week, who is the owner for Firefly, and they were trying in the midst. I don't know if you saw that one, but they were literally trying to open up the second store, and they had like 2 signatures before they can get in, and it was basically an Asian street food. And I, posed the question, how viable is that now? Because there are some people out there that think COVID is an acronym for Chinese outbreak of virus or whatever.
Right.
Just stupid. That's why there's warning labels on products. But on the same token, what I point out was, on this conversation, the master chef said that's the next really hot trend in food is going to be street food and then comfort food. But the safety aspect of it, how do you think we're going to be impacted as an industry?
Well, I like to think, and I have spent some time, I worked with a distributor for a couple of years, as you know, and, I've been in a lot of South Florida kitchens. Not all of them have upheld the highest standards of food safety. But my feeling is that most of the chefs out there want to do the right thing and handle food safely, and have been doing that for years, because a lot more people would be getting sick if they weren't. So, I think a lot of it is do the same things you've been doing, practice the food safety practices that you always have, time and temperature control. Those things are what's important. If you're following the guidelines, the FDA, you're getting good health inspections, you're taking care of business, you're protecting the food. Now, the added level with the COVID issue is, we don't know if I breathe on the food and I'm an asymptomatic carrier, am I putting the virus on the food? Nobody has that answer as far as I can tell. I haven't heard an answer from anybody yet. Are line cooks going to be walking around with surgical masks on? At some places, probably. I think that's certainly a possibility for a while.
Would that trip you out though a little bit? Would that make you a little skittish if you go out and you go to pick food up, for instance, and part of the staff is wearing it, but part of the staff's not. Like recently went to a restaurant, great pizza joint, Jimmy's Brooklyn Pizza over in Wellington, and I noticed the front staff, which is really connected to the back staff. This is an open kitchen. So the girls that were manning the phone and head in front of the customer were wearing surgical masks. But some of the guys in the back, I love this. Surgical mask was here, not here, which was really good.
Sure, perfect.
Some weren't using it at all. Me as a chef, I can kind of see where that goes. But what's to the layman, the Yelp food critics? What's that look like?
Well, I think that those places that are kind of a little more relaxed on their mask rules are going to be the ones that are going to get called out first, and then they're going to change it quick. So it's a lot different than it used to be with the way that people are able to get instant information out there. If I was in the restaurant business, which clearly I'm not, but if I was in the restaurant business and I had an open kitchen and guests were walking in and seeing my team, I think I'd probably want to err on the side of caution and have those masks for the staff and do that kind of thing. Now, I don't know. I know the availability of masks is still continuing to be a challenge.
Right.
We've struggled to get masks for everybody. We're trying to get them not only for our internal clients, for our staff, but also get them for our external clients as well. So that's still an ongoing challenge, and I'm sure it will be for other operators as well. But I think you have to make the, in a way, I kind of look at it like airport security. They put on a really good show, but are they really going to stop a dedicated person from causing a problem? Probably not. This is the same kind of thing. I think you have to put the show on for the guests so that they see that you're doing the right thing. And I mean, ideally, you want to be doing the right thing, but I think they need to see it to make them feel more relaxed about it. Do I think customers are going to start going out and sitting in restaurants? I had this very conversation with Randy Epstein over at Draft House, on Saturday. We went over there and picked up our dinner to go. And, he said, look, he goes, I got a restaurant that seats 150, and now they're going to tell me I can only seat 75. And anybody that's in the restaurant business knows when you cut your seats in half, the rent stays the same, but now you got half the seats. That's not a winning position to get into in a restaurant, simply because it's a tough business when you got 150 seats full.
Well, it's not only that. You got to think about it this way, because I was talking to friends of mine. So let's say you have an 8-top and you're all meeting, as the restaurant is supposed to keep people 6 feet apart. And I know there was one that came out that no tables larger than 6. The problem is I don't know where you've been if I'm meeting you out. They don't know where you've been or where I've been, and yet we're going to put together. So technically, the way I see it is that you should actually have each individual 6 feet apart for technicalities.
Yeah, I mean, think about what they're doing with the golf courses. It's the same thing. They're saying you can't have 2 people in a golf cart unless you live together, is what they're saying. But I mean, who's policing that? Right. It's self-policing recommendations, and so you're going to see. You might have 8 people in your household. I mean, I don't know. We've got neighbors who, their adult kids moved back for a while, and they had 7 or 8 people living in the house. So that's a party by itself already. If they walk out the front door, everybody's going, "Oh, look, there's a party in the neighborhood. Call the police."
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it's just the people who live there.
And you said in the pre-show, you said that you go 2 days at home and then you go 3 days at work.
Right. And so what we've been trying to do is limit everybody's exposure and reduce the number of people in our building. And that's really been the focus is to, just keep it on a skeleton crew, get the work done, take care of business, but do it in a way that is as protective as possible of our clients and as protective as possible of our staff. Because, the last thing we want is any of our staff. I mean, that's, we're just as concerned about our staff as we are about our clients. And that's critical.
And I think that's what a lot of people are too, because they don't want to have that risk of an outbreak. We've got, how does the news of Tyson and IBP and Smithfield Swift, these major companies that are, their factories are having issues now as far as an outbreak. How does that affect you both as a chef, but also as a purchasing agent?
Well, I'm not going to get on my media soapbox because, everybody that I work with knows that I'm not a tremendous fan of the media in general.
Neither am I, but it's okay.
It's just it is what it is. But I think that sometimes they help to exacerbate a problem that may not be that big of a problem. When all of those companies together comprise 10% of the U.S. meat production, but then the news says they're going to run out of meat. Everybody goes and buys. It's going to be the same thing as toilet paper. Everybody's going to have a freezer full of chicken and beef and pork, and but there's not going to be any on the shelves.
I do.
Well, I mean, I do too, but that's my normal life. I shop for proteins twice a year.
Right.
I fill up a big chest freezer and I'm good. But I mean, that's the challenge I think that we're going to run into is that they're really hyping the fact that these companies have closed, so a lot of people are going to go out and buy. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the supply chain. They're going to empty out the freezers, and I think it should just be covered differently. I think it's something where they could come out and say, well, you know what, the freezers are stocked. You're still going to find the product at your grocery store. Nobody needs to panic. But these 10% of plants, they're going to get back up and running eventually, and we'll be back at it. But I think when you got to get clicks and you got to get you got to make money with views, so you got to go negative because that's what sells. So
what's kind of ironic is I was a very long debate that I had with a friend of mine who posted that we're going to have a meat shortage, and I kind of gave them, because of what I do, I gave them the logistics side of things. And, I opened their eyes. I realized that prior to this, we were already having an issue with pork belly. And most people don't realize this, and I'm not trying to start any conspiracy theorists or anything like that, but
Swift, the Chinese bought Smithfield?
Exactly. Right. So,
yeah, no, I hear you.
It's those things that you look at, but here's where I really have a question. These... let's call them what they are, slaughterhouses. They're not harvesting in plants, whatever. They're slaughterhouses. And these slaughterhouses are supposed to be USDA inspected, which is the highest standard of inspections. They have to go through cleaning, and they have to wear certain things. There's certain, they have to stop at certain times and clean the entire line. But yet, 250 people break out, 100 people break out, 200... That's where I go more to, is like questioning things and what the media is doing. I know I agree with you. They do definitely hype things up. But off the subject real quick, and let's get back on the subject of the Naval Academy. 2 years ago, you and I head over to, I think it's New Orleans, right?
New Orleans. Cook, Craft, Create. Yeah. 2018. Yeah, I got my shirt on.
Which is hysterical because we had a great time. I mean, what happens in New Orleans stays in New Orleans. But one of the funniest things is, and I don't know how it started, but we met a guy named Eric Lindstrom.
Yeah, it started at the bar in the hotel. It's exactly where it started. The entire bar was full of chefs from around and we just finished our day session. And I think everybody was going to the bar to grab a cocktail. And I can't remember who the other chef was, but there was a chef that you knew that knew Eric. And somehow he got into our group conversation, and we started talking, and that's where we found out that Eric was the executive chef at the Naval Academy at the Officers Club. And so, of course, that brought up the whole thing that, I used to work at the Officers Club. I was a dishwasher there when I was 14. And so, I think we hit it off really well, really quickly. Eric's a great guy. And, we had a lot of fun hanging out for the rest of that convention. And, I think there's something about when you've shared a kitchen, there's something in the, I don't know whether it's in the blood or it's just, it feels like a real thing.
It's a brotherhood.
It's a brotherhood. And even if it's somebody that you shared a kitchen with years later, that you didn't actually work together, but you worked in the same space, I think it's because you know that person kind of has gone through some of what you've gone through. And it makes it an interesting dynamic.
What I thought was really cool was, fast forward, all of a sudden Eric puts out, because I know he contacted me and it fell apart where I couldn't go. And he said, I need help. I'm feeding generals and this whole big naval pride or something.
So it was the Medal of Honor convention. So I want to say it's every 5 years, uh, this Medal of Honor organization gets together and brings together all the living recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor. And they hold it in a different city every year. And this was the first time they'd ever held it at a service academy. And so it was, Eric was going to get bombarded with, all of the greatest heroes in our military history that were coming to this place. And so it was really a big deal for him. And, he was, he was really looking for some folks that could come out and lend him a hand to really, help make it a very special event for those folks.
And you did. You answered it too. So you flew up.
Yeah, there was a number of us. Chef Paul from Natuno, he came up, and Chef Brian Jackson came up from Texas. His boss was supposed to come up, but his boss couldn't go, so the boss sent a sous chef. And Eric and I and Paul and my brain's flipped out for a second there. But anyway, the four of us, really had a great time. Spent a lot of time cooking together. Did some big cocktail events. We did a cocktail event for 750 people. We did a dinner for 750 people. And I mean, when Eric puts a dinner on, let me tell you something. They imagine this, if you will, because the front of the house nightmare alone, because there was 75 10 tops in Dahlgren Hall, which was a big ice skating rink at one time. When I was a kid growing up, it was an ice skating rink. It's a huge hall at the Naval Academy. 75 tables. Half the tables are done with a blue design, and half the tables are done with a gold design. Not only that, half the china is blue china, half the china is gold china. So when you're going to serve your table, we had to have a blue line and a gold line. And then they all had to go out, and the servers had to make sure they were taking the right color china to go to the right tables. So imagine this. And of course they've got guest speakers, and the Secretary of the Navy's there, and it was really it was a phenomenal dinner, a great event. I think everybody really enjoyed it. We had a Medal of Honor recipient came back that he had lost his hand in the Middle East, and he came back into the kitchen, and he was really comfortable in the kitchen environment. He goes, I really wanted to be a cook in the Army. And, but at the last minute, I switched up and went to do something else. And he goes, probably would have worked out a little better for me if I, but then again, he was really appreciative of the work that we've done. And he understood the work that went into, putting a dinner together for that size group. And, so it was a really special event for us. And it was something that, as a volunteer going into, we didn't get paid to go do this. And I would go do it again in a heartbeat. To honor the men and women who've sacrificed their lives for our country. It's a huge deal. So
definitely, let's fast forward now, because now you're at the Lord's Place and you're working there, and I think it was not last year, maybe it was last year, you decided through the American Culinary Federation you wanted to become certified executive chef.
Correct.
And obviously you have your reasons why you wanted to do it. So let's talk about what's one of the reasons why you wanted to become certified.
Well, I for a long time had stayed away from the ACF because I kind of had this preconceived notion in my head that, these are a bunch of really kind of stuffy old school chefs, and I didn't go to culinary school. I wasn't one of those guys, and I kind of had this preconceived notion that was not a group that was going to be accepting of a guy like me. Thankfully, I got to meet some folks from the ACF that, really helped me to understand that that's not what the ACF is about at all. And, so starting to get to know some guys. And I remember actually talking to Michael Jasa, because I think at the time he was the certification board member. Mm-hmm. And talking to him about certification a little bit. And, for me, I was kind of like, that would really be a smart thing to do, not only for myself, but for my students. Because I think if I can show that I've raised myself to that level, then I think that's just going to help my students out, help with our program, make our program better. And that was, the goal of this whole thing was to, ultimately get a certification for our students in our program. And we're still working towards that. So that was kind of where I got, that's where I kind of got the idea that I wanted to go pursue the certification. And then, my perspective of it, having read about it and talked to some people about it, I kind of, in the beginning, before I really even started practicing or anything, I was a little cocky about the whole thing. Like, how hard could this be? I can do the book work. And believe me, not having gone to culinary school, the book work is intense because you've got to get 250 credits before you can go through the practical exam and the final exam. So, it took me a couple of years to get all the college courses finished, to go to all the ACF conventions, to start getting the CEUs that I needed to get my file big enough so that I was eligible to participate. So that was a lot of work. And then the practical was really that was the area where I was most concerned, because I think, that's where the rubber hits the road, is the practical exam. And you either have it or you don't. And that's, so when I first went into this, I got all my hours and everything together, and I had that opportunity to go and watch some other people take the exam. And I actually watched Joseph and Drew do their exams over at the Everglades Club. And that was a very humbling experience. I think that really opened my eyes to what the expectation levels were. And I'm really glad that I waited a little bit to go try to take that exam. And at the end of the day, I think my biggest takeaway, everybody kept saying, it's practice, practice, practice. I did a ton of practicing. I never got a chance to practice in somebody else's kitchen, which, won't make that mistake again. And just for everybody, so everybody understands, I did not pass my certification exam. I didn't pass my practical exam. I think that the areas where I was most concerned about failing were the areas where I got my highest marks, and the areas that I was least concerned about were the ones where I struggled. And so I was so worried about, because they said sanitation, and sanitation I had down to a science, really well taken care of. I was very well organized. They said, you really had your act together on all this stuff. But some of this flat out cooking just didn't come together the way that I did. My fish production was a challenge. So, I think that it was a great learning opportunity for me. I am going to go after it again. I don't know what that's going to look like yet. But my plan was to do it in May, because we were talking about having a class in May. I doubt that's happening now, and with everything that's going on with COVID. But I certainly am looking towards the fall and hoping that we do have a certification exam in the fall. And if that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and move forward with that again. So it's getting close to time for me to start practicing again. So,
well, I think one of the things, and because Steve McCracken also had called and reached out to me, and we're talking about nationals if we're going to go to Dallas, and he threw his token for going for Chef of the Year for the Southeast region, and one of those things he needs the CEC prior to going to that, and I've been toying with, and I just kind of like the light bulb, as Gru would say in the Minions, light bulb went off. And one of the things I thought of was, maybe we can do a Zoom one. You can be in the kitchen and Chef Jessa or Chef Garms can get on there with the Zoom and say, hey, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to talk about. These are things we need to kind of look at and still do a class, but do it through technology, right? This is the piece that we're doing now. We're still doing social distancing. Obviously, Drew and Mike can help while you are in the kitchen and doing a thing. But at least it gives the membership a way to kind of keep seasoned throughout this whole thing with COVID. I mean, there's going to be a whole new way that we're going to be doing things, not just the ACF, but just things in general. Like we talked about earlier, and you were talking about the ale house. I don't see restaurants sustaining themselves at 75 seats because that's not the footprint that they're made for. I think pizzerias taught us a lesson that pizzerias are set up for pandemics. They seem to be the only ones that are really killing it right now. Number one, food. The area of the Lord's Place, let's concentrate on that for a second. You're not funded by anyone, correct? You're not getting grants from the government, or maybe you are. So, how does that work?
Yeah, so we're a pretty expansive agency. We house somewhere in the neighborhood of 450 people or so. So we have campuses. We have a family campus, a men's campus, multiple women's campuses. Scattered site housing all through the community. So some of that housing is HUD funded. I think a good chunk of that is HUD funded housing. That's my understanding. And again, we're getting into some areas where I'm not quite as well versed as as I am in the culinary arena. But yeah, our organization has to fundraise a significant portion of the budget that has to come from the community. And so our team we have an advancement team that's just absolutely incredible. We just had our big sleep out, which sorry we missed you there. That would have been a lot of great brisket and pork shoulder. But we were really looking forward to that in April. But my understanding is that brisket and pork shoulder will be back next April for sleep out. So,
how many pounds did we do last year?
I think it was 600 pounds total. I think it was 400 brisket and 200 or 300 pounds, maybe 200 pounds of pork shoulder, something like that. Might have been a little bit more than that, but because we had that Cheney Brothers smoker pretty well stocked.
I think you had two chambers that had nothing in them. That's towards the back
over on the other side. Yeah. So it was 3/4 of that thing were cranked.
But that doesn't generate revenue for you, or does it?
So sleep out normally brings in somewhere in the area of $500,000 or $600,000. It did very well this year as an online. We couldn't believe the online response. We raised $678,000 this year.
That's awesome.
With the sleep in program, so we had a live program that aired on Friday night that folks were able to participate in. It's definitely it was a challenge for a lot of our staff because we really, we enjoy being there. We enjoy that event. We enjoy being a part of it. It's a great community event, and I think it was a struggle for a lot of people that we weren't able to hold that. So we're really looking forward to next year. So get ready. It's going to be a lot of smoking going on.
That's awesome.
But it's a great program, and really, the point of the whole thing is. When it comes to sleep out is to really empathize a little bit with the plight of the folks who are out on the streets. A lot of our staff actually sleep out that night. We sleep out. For me, I grab a pallet and I sleep on a pallet, under one of the food tents. And a lot of my staff will sleep out as well. And I'll tell you, you wake up in the morning, you don't feel good. Your body hurts. You're cranky. And, for us, it's an opportunity for us to have a little empathy for our clients and understand where they're coming from when they're not in the best of moods. They didn't wake up in a soft bed. They didn't wake up with air conditioning. They were sleeping out in the hot, but it's hard. And they call it sleeping rough in Europe. And that's basically what it is. And it's understandable why our clients struggle the way that they do, sleeping that way. So for us, it's a good once a year kind of eye opener to say, oh, you know what, this is why they're struggling a little bit. And how can we help them be better?
So if somebody's watching this and wants to donate to the Lord's Place, and I know you have the Joshua Tree, which is where people can drop off secondhand goods or
right. So we have two thrift stores, one down in West Palm Beach in the south end, and one in Lake Park, and those are called Joshua Thrift. Joshua is kind of the Cafe Joshua is the cafe where we feed our clients during the week, and so we kind of played on that name for Joshua Catering and Joshua Thrift, and so we've got two stores where they can drop off and do in-kind donations. And of course, you can always go to our website, thelordsplace.org, and there's opportunities there to volunteer, opportunities to donate. There's lots of different ways that people can get involved. I can tell you the outpouring of community help that we're getting right now because we're packaging up a ton of non-perishable foods that our outreach team is taking out into the community. And we're doing about 300 packs a week of these products. And thanks to the ACF, you guys have helped to sponsor that for a little while. And in addition to that, we're getting, donations of peanut butter crackers and shelf-stable milks and tuna, the kind of things that are going to hold on the streets a little while for our folks that are living outside so that they can, put a meal together and have something to eat when they can't get to us or get to St. Anne's or to, one of the other feeding locations.
Well, looking back at your life and being in the industry for 30 years, and you've had a really successful career, there are some spots in my life where I say, I never would have thought I would have done that. Looking back now where you are and how you've worked for the Lord's Place back when you started this is a dishwasher.
Yeah.
Did you think, fast forward 30 years, you'd be working for an organization that would be helping people and like they are right now?
No, I guess the seed was probably planted because I spent a lot of time as a kid in Boy Scouts, and I was very heavily involved in Scouts. I was a camp counselor in Scouts. And ultimately, when I moved to Florida in the beginning, when I first came here, I went to work for Jupiter Beach Resort. And it turned out I had a lot more time on my hands than I thought. And so I became a Scoutmaster. And I actually ran a troop in here in Lake Park for a couple of years that was struggling. And there were some guys that were coming up on getting their Eagle Scout, and I was able to help them, get past that goal and achieve it. So I spent a lot of time in that organization, and I know now the media, nobody wants to talk about Boy Scouts. But 99.999% of the people that went through the program had a great experience. And I still talk to my Scoutmaster to this day. And the guys that were in my troop, I mean, we're still close. We talk on Facebook all the time. Really, really good people. And so, that kind of, I think, created a foundation of community service for me. And so I've always kind of been involved in some kind of community service. I got when my kids came along, I got involved with the Youth Athletic Association and started doing, work for them, as a volunteer. So I guess in a way, a lot of that kind of planted the seed for me to get there. Now, I certainly never had in my mind that, when I was, scrubbing pots, that, one day I'm going to go, work at a nonprofit organization. But I certainly, I think, was predisposed to this kind of work. And it was an interesting chain of events that led me to the Lord's Place. And I've been here 9 years now, working on my 10th year now. And I really can't think of, an organization where I would rather be working. It certainly is the most rewarding position that I've ever had, in my career. And and the people are great, and it's a phenomenal organization, and it comes from the leadership all the way down. I mean, you see it, every day they live the mission. We're all about the mission, and when you have a cohesive team that's all focused on the same thing, man, it makes it really easy to go to work every day.
Yeah, I have to kind of like echo that too, because when I was a part of it last year, you see that camaraderie between. I remember the woman who came over and said, well, I'm going to go over and we're going to get this much money. And she was like a go-getter. And people are there, where would you need this and where would you need that chef this? And it was more of a family-oriented mission, if you want to call it that. And they definitely really care about the clients. I really applaud everything that the Lord's Place do. I'm really stoked that Dominic was able to bring up I think it was either Dominic or Chef Carlino was able to bring it up to the board to donate to the Lord's Place and to donate the $5,000 because I think it's worthwhile. My problem now for me as a restaurant guy, as a chef, is what does things look like? And what's the teaching that you're going to be able to do for your clients that Serve Safe is going to change? Because inevitably, we talked about it a little bit. Yelp is no longer going to be about the food. It's going to be, did you see that person touch their face? Did you see, how, and I put on the newsletter, Carlino might have some answers. What's that going to look like? What do you think that's going to look like? What are you going to be telling your students?
Well, I think, this is our industry where we have an advantage because we're flexible. One of the things about I think the people that work in food service, if it was the same thing every day, we'd all hate it. That's the kind of people that go into food service, it seems like. And so, if it's a routine and it's the same deal, I'm not interested at all. It's, no thanks. So I think we're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to, we're going to have to move with the target and figure out what's going to happen next. And I think, Serve Safe's going to come out with rules. At some point, the FDA is going to come out with a new set of guidelines. And I mean, they came out with their last grouping, and I'm sure you're aware of this. The local Department of Health, isn't really doing food safety inspections anymore the way they used to. They're pushing it all to DBPR, and those guys are all using the FDA Model Food Code. So I think that code is going to get changed here fairly quickly. That stuff's going to filter down into the states. It's all going to change, and so we just have to be prepared to move, and that's the target's going to change. How we're going to work in a kitchen's probably going to change a little bit. But again, we've already, we're already doing those food safety things that are protecting the food. And so now they're just telling us we're going to have to add this one thing or add these two things, and we've got it knocked out. So, I think we have that flexibility.
Yeah, I definitely, that's one thing that our industry definitely, we're a bunch of MacGyvers.
Yeah.
Is there one working at Dolores Place 9 years, almost 10 years. Is there a couple situations that stand out more so that you're a mentor to somebody and they call you on a regular basis to pick your brain?
Yeah, that actually happens a great deal. I think like any mentor mentee scenario, sometimes you click with somebody and sometimes another chef will click with somebody. So, I don't particularly click with all 13 students we have in the kitchen, but there may be one or two that I click with throughout as the cohort goes through the training, and other chefs click with other folks. And so we have those relationships that happen that, there are some guys that are still, working culinary. They're still in the industry, and I'll see them on a fairly regular basis. So they call me up and say, "Hey, chef, I got this situation," or "Hey, chef, this is what's going on here." And, they have a sounding board. They have somebody that they can have that conversation with and say, here's the way I see it. Here's some things you might want to think about. One of the things I didn't mention when we talked about our culinary training program is we also have a part of our culinary training program, and in all of our transitional work experience programs, is a thing called CBI, which is cognitive behavioral intervention. And it's a 36-week course that our students all go through to help them really take a strong look at how they think and change the way they think. One of the things that we find with clients who are living on the streets, it's very difficult for them to make plans or to see the future or the impact of decisions on the future. And so, they don't realize that if you push this domino, all those other dominoes are going to fall. So we try to help them change the way that their mind works so they can look down the road and say, hey, if I decide to tell my boss, F off, I'm going to lose my job. Well, then if I lose my job, I'm going to lose my apartment and lose my car. And, some of that stuff, sometimes that's not the way the brain is functioning. So CBI kind of helps them to understand that, maybe I need to have a different way that I work with this guy, or maybe I just need to find a different boss and, and make those decisions instead of, quitting the job before you have a new one, take some of those lessons that we all know instinctively, to take care of our families and take care of our lifestyle and whatever we want to do. So yeah, I think that there's a number of guys and ladies that I've mentored over the years that we hear from, and some of them we don't hear from. They get their life back and they're off to the races and they're doing great and they're doing their thing. So it depends on each client.
Yeah, the other thing, and I love that about it because mentoring for most chefs is what we do and why we do what we do, and that's got to be so rewarding for me, but 10, 20 times more rewarding for you because, mentoring for I don't want to say the normal chef, but the guy who's already in the industry and in the kitchen and having that person, you kind of like, okay, there's what I've done and I've helped that person. But you are on a total different level because you're taking somebody literally off the street and spoon feeding them to where they can learn to walk, talk, everything again and live in society.
Well, one of the things we say a lot at work is that, we can't want it more than they do. And so, I can, the old lead the horse to water, you can't make them drink. We have this conversation on a regular basis. The clients have to be ready for change. And so, depending, our age range of transitional work students that come through our program is anywhere from 18 years old all the way up to 60. When that person is ready to make a change in their life, they're tired of being on the street, they're tired of doing what's been going on, they're sick of being sick, whatever it is. When they're ready to make a change, we're there to have the opportunity to bring them the opportunity to make that change. We're their safety net, we're their mentors, we provide the programs and services that will help them get to the next level, but they've got to want it. It's not a free ride, and as if you're not focused on a goal, you're not going to get to that goal, and so that's part of it as well. So,
what would you say to Robert now that you back then as a dishwasher at 14? Is there anything else you would say to Robert now that you've gone through life and you're at the stage of your life now that you would want to say to Robert then? Besides going, don't drink so much behind the bar or the dumpster.
Behind the dumpster.
Switch to vodka. It's much better. I mean, is there something that you would want to say?
And that's a tough call because I mean everything that I've done and learned through my career has led me to where I'm at, and so it's hard to say that what you did there was a huge mistake. I think we have to make mistakes. I think we have to have those experiences, and if somebody along the way is telling you, hey, don't do that, don't do that, sometimes you have to learn the hard way. And I think you can learn some lessons by reading a book and hey, that's probably not a good idea. Don't touch the fire. But I think you also sometimes have to have that experience and have it happen to you to really know that that's not the direction you want to go. And so for me, I think that to go back and change anything, may not have put me where I am today. And where I am today is a really great place. And I wouldn't want to change that at all.
Well, it kind of goes to along with the whole thing of your clients that basically have now hit what we would call the preventable rock bottom. And that's a mistake, right? In anybody's in society's eyes, I should say, that's a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it could be any number of factors. Right. I mean, there's so many reasons why folks end up, in a homeless situation. That there's trauma, there's there's 1,000 things, and 1,000 reasons.
What you're doing at the Lord's Place and what the Lord's Place is doing is giving them that opportunity to learn from their, and I'm going to quote mistake because I don't think it is. I think it's a life lesson. And I love that you've changed it around, that there's nothing you would tell Robert back then because Robert now is the person you are now because of the mistakes and the blunders and what you've done. Listen, we had a phenomenal conversation. We were at an event and I couldn't go see you. I remember that night and I found out and I waited a couple of days because I didn't want to reach out. I want to kind of like let you kind of grab your arms around the severity of what happened. And I use severity lightly. But having that conversation with you and the way you perceive things, that was amazing. And I think you're an amazing individual for what you do, what you have done, what you've been through. But not only that, what you do for the organization, for the Palm Beach Chefs Association as the second vice president. And I know you're like, well, what am I doing? I don't really know what I'm doing. And, sometimes, but you really do, you inject a lot of sense of humor. You inject a lot from your learnings from your athletic association because it's a 501(c), and we are too. So you help out a lot. And I really commend what you do and what you've been doing. Before we go, I'm going to open it to you to say anything you'd like to besides, please, anybody that wants to donate to the Lord's Place, go to lordsplace.org. Donate. If you have any bruised items or slightly used items, I've done this. I no longer donate to the other two. I only donate to this organization because I keep it local. So what are some of your parting words?
Ooh, parting words. That's a tough one, man, because it's forever now, right? It's on the internet, so I don't know.
Well, if it's on the internet, it's true.
I'll tell you the thing that for me, is follow your passion. I think that's the key, because if you're passionate about something, how you do it is going to be completely different from the way that you would do anything else. And so I think that's the key takeaway for anybody. I tell my students this, say, look, if you don't love this kitchen, don't work in a kitchen because it's the hardest work in the world if you don't love it. If you would much rather be a truck driver, if you would much rather, put roofs on tops of buildings, whatever it is that's your passion, go do that thing. I've been fortunate enough in my life to be able to pursue my passions, and that's really been great, and it's been a great opportunity. And so I think that if you don't love what you're doing, go find something that you love to do and do that. It's probably one of those like lofty elitist things to say. I don't know.
Well, actually, it was funny because I found a fortune cookie very young in my my career trajectory that it said, choose a job that's a hobby and never work a day in your life. And I think that kind of echoes what you're talking about now is we have chosen something that, again, one, passion, two, it's a hobby. And you love to help people. Obviously, Boy Scout and Scout and that mentoring, I think that's why you've fallen into your dream job. I mean, you can't say that my dream job is different from your dream job. I mean, we both like eating, so that would be a great dream job.
Absolutely, yeah. If anybody wants to just pay me to eat all the time, we can do that too.
Which was funny because we did judge a chili contest for
Yes, indeed.
firefighters.
That's right. Not too bad. That was a great time.
Yeah, it
Enjoy
was.
that kind of stuff for sure.
So I do appreciate you taking the time out in the busy schedule and taking the time out in your kitchen and having the conversation with us. And I hopefully it's amazing because I'm watching the comment box and nobody's commented except hi, how are you, good morning. There's no one asked a question, there's no one that made a statement.
Wow.
So it's profound because people were probably listening because this is a very deep conversation that we're talking about. We're talking about the forgotten souls because like you said, when you're driving down the street, you don't really necessarily look at the you look at the sign, you don't look at the person.
Right.
And I
Right.
think what you've really opened and shed light on is the homeless aspect of it. And I think it's not going to get better because, you know, 25 million Americans are now unemployed.
Absolutely. That's the part that most concerns me, I guess, is that our business will increase. Ideally, we want our business to go away. We're in the business of going out of business. But we are a resource for people, and that's the most important thing is to not only are we a resource, but we have a good handle on what the other resources are that are available in the community. And so I think that's the part that I think for the average person, you see that guy on the street corner, give him a cheeseburger, whatever strikes your heart to do, but also let them know, hey, there's this place called the Lord's Place down the street. Go check out what they've got going on. There's the Senator Lewis Center, the homeless outreach group. There's St. Anne's and St. George's. There's resources in the community. Make sure that those people that you do run into or interact with on the street are aware of what's out there, because that's, there's 211. They call 211 on a phone and get information.
Well, I feel you mentioned something right there. You made a statement. The interaction that you have with people on the street. Question is how many people have interaction with people on the street?
A lot don't. I mean, I think that's the probably the interactions happening at the off ramp on 95. Is where the interaction's happening, and
but not probably a peaceful one either, though.
I guess it depends on the situation and the person. Again, I think that the more that everybody sees those folks as, look, they were somebody's kid. They might be somebody's parent. They could be a brother and a sister, whatever it is. They're human beings just like us. Their circumstances are radically different than ours right now. But that doesn't mean, I've had students come through the program that were principals of high schools. Business professionals have come through our programs for, various reasons that they ended up in a situation and need the services of the Lord's Place. And so I think that, as I said before, a lot of people are not that far away from needing those services. And so, for whatever their circumstance is. And, we have to really look at those folks and realize they're not that different from you and I. Their circumstance is different, but they're still people. And, they're getting to know these folks. There's a lot of really good people out there that, circumstances have them on the streets.
Now, if somebody who's watching this and not only wants to donate, because we already know that's thelordsplace.org, but what if they need help in their kitchens as they're about to, and they want to hire somebody from your organization? How do they go about reaching out to maybe
they can reach right out to me, and I will connect them with our employment team. We have a group of professionals whose job it is to help our graduates find employment. And so they start working actually before the students graduate on finding employment opportunities for them. They work with them on interviewing skills and resumes and all that kind of stuff. So you reach out to me, I'll connect you with our employment team, and we'll try to find somebody that's a good fit. And that's again, we're not a staffing agency. I don't have 30 prep cooks that are ready to go today. But what we are is an organization that has a bunch of people, and those people have varying levels of skills, and depending on what you're looking for, we might have somebody that fits the bill.
So the bottom line is, if you do, just reach down below in the comment box. Go ahead and type out there, hey, I'd love Chef Robert Coleman's contact information. We'll get that to you. Chef, again, I really do appreciate it. It's been a really phenomenal conversation. I didn't expect it to go as smoothly and as transition. Like, I'm looking at the time, it's like it's already been an hour.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And we really touched on a lot of really great things. And I look forward to one day, hopefully very soon, having a kitchen where we can have this CEC training along with other certification and actually having the not only the board but the membership meet. And I think the next time when we do get through this COVID-19 is maybe have another maybe distillery or
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea.
yeah, we need to blow
Knock
off
the
some
rust
steam.
off.
No, we need to dust off some stuff and definitely get back into the swing of things as far as that concerned. Get back to what our new normal will look like. Again,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Chef. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Everybody out there listening to this, again, thank you to the Lord's Place for what you guys do, especially the entire team. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day, and you will have a wonderful Taco Tuesday.
All right. Take care, Jeff.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks, Chef.
All right. Bye-bye.